Hi, my name is Awesome Aguilera, and welcome to WEYT, the show where I find interesting people just like you and discover what's going on between their ears. Now, let's get to know one another. What's good, everybody? Awesome Aguilera here, and welcome to another episode of WEYT. Today's mantra is, and this is a fairly long one. It's not really a mantra, but it's a comment on life. And here we go. Quote, "You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read and learn. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were ever alive or who had ever been alive." Close quote. And that was said by James Baldwin, who was an African American of note in the 1940s, 50s time. So, you know, we're all more alike than we are not. So let's remember that as we go forward into this world. So check it out over here. I have an amazing person on today, amazing guest. I love this person. And this is Enid Nolasco. And what is my relationship with Enid? Enid, let's see, I met Enid at Axen Club down in Fort Lauderdale a few years ago, and I've seen her flourish and become the amazing. She was amazing when I met her, but you know, I think she stepped into her amazingness. And you know, I met her at Action Club. She had this weird dream to start a true storytelling event down in Fort Lauderdale. And today, she is the curator of what's called raw storytelling. So, Enid, thank you for being on with me today, and let the people know a little bit more about your story, where you've been, where you're going, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me. I've been like waiting for my invite for months now. I'm like, where's my invite? Okay, cool. Well, first of all, thank you again. About me, you pretty much summed up a lot about me. Yeah, I am the creator, puppeteer, producer, host extraordinaire of Raw Storytelling, a true storytelling show and podcast. And I'm also a brand designer. I have a branding and design studio called Raw Made. I am a sassy Puerto Rican who is from the main island, but also lived a lot of my life in the US as well, like half and half. So I'm like half Gringa, half Latina, I would say. And I have a huge love for anything that's beautiful. So that's kind of how I got into the creative world, which is design and branding, and then eventually in storytelling. And I am obsessed with podcasts, obsessed with TV since I was a child, obsessed with movies and TV. And I think the storytelling affinity in my life really comes from my love for TV, because that's just the ultimate storytelling platform. Yeah, and books as well. I have a fun fact. Flip.
We love fun facts.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was in elementary school, I won the most amount of books read during the summer, and it was like 250 or something like that.
Wow,
It
they
was
must have been
ridiculous.
the little thin highlight books.
It was like medium. I was maybe like in third grade or something, or third. So, and at that time, they had a campaign where you would get a pan pizza for every
Oh
like X amount
yes.
of books that
Is that
were
like Book
read
It or whatever?
from Pizza Hut.
Uh-huh. I remember
And
that.
I ate so many pan pizzas. It was like pan pizzas were like coming to the door every day. I was like, I got this.
I got this. I
Yeah.
got books
So
and pizza.
yeah, so that's where my storytelling side comes from. And I think I implement a lot of what I've learned in storytelling to design and branding, and I apply a lot of what I've learned in branding to storytelling. So I think it's a good mix,
Also,
oddly
you
enough.
you mentioned that you're half Puerto Rican and half American.
Yes,
How do
half
you
gringa.
think that half Gringa? So how do you
I
think
don't
that
want to
combination has set up the way you live your life?
It depends on the day.
It depends on the
So
day.
some days I feel like I fit in nowhere, because it's, well, especially I would say in different stages of my life I felt that, because I was first born in Costa Rica, but only lived there for 3 years, and then lived my whole elementary school in the U.S. between DC and Houston. So, and I also
So
I
there's
started,
more than Puerto Rico and
yeah, but my whole family's Puerto Rican. I just happened to be born in Costa Rica, but I do love Costa Rica, but I don't identify as a Tica.
as a tica.
Oh, so I started to stutter when I was 4. So I think I latched onto the English language because I stutter a lot less in English. I latched onto that. So then when my mom remarried and we moved to Puerto Rico when I was 10, it was hard because even though my whole family life is Puerto Rican, I kind of mostly spoke English and had a like super American childhood. And then I go over there, I don't know any of the references that these kids have, but I was in Puerto Rico until from 10 until like 22.
Oh, wow.
So then at that point I became fully Puerto Rican. Like I didn't know the American references. I barely spoke English. And then when I moved to New York City when I was 22, it was the same thing but backwards now. Because
Yeah.
now I'm like, I don't have any of the American references. It was just like I keep switching back and forth. So I think on certain days it feels exclusive, but on some days I feel special. It's like kind of like being bilingual. I'm like, oh, I have like a one tiny leg up
Yeah.
from normal, whatever is normal, you know?
So would you say that then having these life experiences of being half Puerto Rican and half Gringa have created versatility within you?
Oh yeah, I feel like I can code switch between the two, especially because I've been now in the U.S. for maybe like 14 years or so. The thing is, I've been here long enough where I feel really, really gringa at this point. Yeah.
Hmm.
But then when I do spend time with my family, I literally is like a switch that flips and I can be fully Puerto Rican again and kind of forget my Americanism. It's really odd and a little bit fun too.
And this is a little off topic, but there's this whole movement of Puerto Rico that, they're kind of divided of should they become a state, should they
Oh
become
yeah, forever.
independent? And what do you think from your perspective? How has that affected you? How has that affected the stories between the two
Hmm.
countries, that you are basically
Oh,
from?
that's a yeah. I'm not even gonna get into all. I love history, so I kind of like can tell you the whole history of what's happening with this identity crisis that Puerto Ricans have. Since the time of like like the Taino, and
Yeah,
then we had and like we're just such a mix of identity confusion. It's
yeah,
incredible. It's like fascinating. But I will say that how that plays in my life in terms of like politics, it's hard because so actually there's 3 parties. Well, now there's more, but most people like it's kind of like here where like Democrats and Republicans are like the main party, and there's other stuff that we don't never talk about. Same thing there. There's 3 parties. There's the statehood, independence, and there's the people in the middle that want to stay as they are right now, which is basically a colony or a commonwealth,
yeah,
a modern day colony. Everyone that I like, it's kind of like the same thing as here. We associate with the people that we have things in common with. So my whole family and my family's friends and my whole bubble was in the middle. Like they weren't statehood, they were independence, they were in the middle. So that's kind of all I knew. And when I left Puerto Rico, I left with like, oh, we're good as we are. I had that mentality of like, we have it good. But now that I'm on the outside and I didn't have to suffer through Maria, the hurricane. I didn't have to suffer through the bankruptcy and the crisis and the political crisis, the earthquakes, everything else is going on, you know. Now that all that has passed and I'm over here and I'm an adult, I can see how we really aren't okay being in the middle. It's
yeah,
not good enough. It's not
yeah,
good enough. I don't know if the answer is statehood. I don't think that's gonna fix things. I just think there needs to be like a contract negotiation
yeah.
kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. But that's my adult Puerto Rican take on it
All right. So
as an
thank.
outsider because I haven't suffered those things that they've suffered over there.
All right. So thank you for sharing that perspective. You also mentioned a little bit earlier that you love things that are beautiful.
I do, yeah.
What does that mean for you?
Oh, I truly believe that humanity would be calmer, happier, more stable, like society if we surrounded ourselves with things that were well designed, engaging to the eye, and almost like if everything was art. And it kind of makes me sad when I go to a town or a city or an area and they've paid no attention to the like design within architecture, like store signage, street signage, all this stuff. And then I go to one where they have like had people really wanting to put love and invest into making their surroundings beautiful. This can also apply to like homes. Like when I go to somebody's home and they haven't really like put any effort into making it them with
Yeah.
their touches, that's the same thing. It's like it makes me sad. So I want to help and support people to make their spaces beautiful, whatever that means for them. Make cities beautiful, make online spaces beautiful. I love it. Yeah.
Make podcasts,
I was gonna
backgrounds
say, I was
beautiful.
like, I'm so envious of your background. It's
You got some
incredible.
dogs in your background. They're pretty cool.
Those are my doggies. I do. I had to curate my wall when COVID happened because I basically spend my time on Zoom now.
So what are these strings behind you? What do they mean to you?
This is a macrame thing.
Okay, nice.
I don't know what a macrame thing. I did not make it, but
Yeah.
it
My
reminds
mom
me
used to make
of
macrame. Mm-hmm.
my mom. It's funny. My mom does not make macrame. She does cross stitch, and she
Okay.
taught us all to cross stitch. But this reminded me of my mom. Somehow she's very
Okay.
crafty. And I got my moons because I love moons, and I got my boobs because I love boobs. um, and then just some crystals and my doggies.
Where do you think you got this idea of things being beautiful affecting our psychology as we go through
Mm,
life?
I have to attribute that to my last job. Like, so I used to work for a branding agency in Fort Lauderdale, like very like one of the best, right? I already knew branding before going there. And I worked for a couple agencies, but it was kind of like like maybe it was outdated at the time. Like now I would say it was outdated. I didn't know at the time. But when I went to this new job that had a lot of fresh energy, young people, great ideas, like an art background, so they really had like a better aesthetic. Being there, and just learning on the job, I realized how beautifying something makes a difference. It really makes you care for it more and makes like your mood better. And how, especially in branding, where branding isn't only the visuals, it could be smells and sounds and touch experiences. So being there and having that amazing experience of learning from them and how they saw design from an art perspective, it just changed how I thought about like life. And all my coworkers had like beautiful homes and beautiful like just super like curated spaces, and I was so envious. I was like, when I go home it's just a couch. You know, so I was really envious of that.
All right. So thank you for sharing. Now we're going to transition to what this show is all
Ooh,
about. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Deep breath. Enid, what's been engaging your thoughts lately?
Uh, I've I've been really struggling with the roller coaster of emotions that the past, I don't even know, 8 months has it been, that quarantine has brought on. I really, really go from euphoric, excited, grateful, happy. I feel lucky. I feel like I dodged a huge bullet and was able to survive during this this pandemic and all that. I mean, still survive. And then I go to like incredible loneliness, feeling like, you know, desperation and all those things. You know, it really is a roller coaster, and I never know how it's gonna go or when it's gonna go up and down. So that's been my thought process for the past
So what do
weeks.
you think is fueling this roller coaster?
I honestly think it's solitude. I really think
So
that,
before you
yeah.
continue, just give us a little context of what's going on in your town. Like what are the
Oh,
rules?
yeah.
What's it like for you?
Well, yeah, regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, in case you're watching this in the far, far future, um, I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we went into shutdown on March, I think it was 11th, which was the day after the last Raw storytelling show I hosted this year. Not knowing, and at the time you were like, these people that didn't show up to the show because they're afraid. Look at them.
Hmm.
Like I totally was in denial. People. So that shutdown happened in March. It was pretty hardcore shutdown. I would say that I probably left my apartment maybe 8 times in 3 months, and it was just to go to the supermarket, and that was it. I had like one quarantine buddy that I saw maybe a couple times. I did not see anybody else until maybe like July or August. And then by this time I live alone. I live alone. And so I spent my whole time just alone at home and randomly talking to people on Zoom when needed. Now things are opening up again a little, so I'm starting to see people, but it's still kind of like planning a COVID get together is like planning a wedding. Yeah. And I've noticed that when I do see people, I do get like those bursts and I can think less about myself and more about others. But when I'm alone, there's nobody else. I just think about myself a lot. I
So,
think that's what's
so
happening.
being that you're a thoughtful person and you are very mindful that you're going through this roller coaster of emotions, what are some of the steps you're taking to try to mitigate or curate how this roller coaster is going to affect you long term? Because you don't want to end up too anxious or depressed either.
No, no. I am being super self-aware of my thoughts. I mean, to the point where I started a rule that for every negative thought that I have to have a positive thought. So I try as hard as I can. I'm not saying I nail this every time, but I'm trying as hard as I can. Every time I think a negative thought, I take a pause and think of a positive thought. And it's so hard. Like I will be like there sitting for like a whole minute trying to think of a positive thought, but I
Hmm.
can think about 50 negative thoughts, right?
What do you
So
mean? All you got to think for a positive thought is that you know me.
now I have a new one. Now I have a new one. I have a go-to one. Yes. So yeah, that's the number one thing I've been doing right now. I'm really, really bad at being like reaching out to people. Like, I will never reach out to you. It just won't happen. So I've been really trying to say yes to everyone who reaches out to me because that's basically my only way to socialize. So even though I maybe be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm gonna still say yes because you never know.
And what has that choice done for you?
It really has given me a break from myself.
Hmm.
it's it's also allowed me just to start experiencing things and also to start like experiencing life things, and then also it's given me opportunity to realize I have to find a way to continue living just with a mask on and washing my hands a lot or whatever it is, but I can't stop everything just because I'm afraid that I don't know, die or kill somebody with COVID or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you realize that you're having all of these negative thoughts. You're trying to build the habit of filling it with positive thoughts. When did you even notice that you were being, for lack of a better word, overcome with more negative thoughts than positive ones?
I've struggled with that my entire life. My first instinct is always the negative thought. And it was something that like I really like throughout life, I realized that people didn't like to be around me because of it, because I was always like the negative Nancy type. So I made a conscious effort to switch that years ago. And it's been a work in
When?
progress.
Give us a little more
Mm,
detail as to the
I
when.
will say
How old? What were you going through
maybe
in your life
like,
around that?
no, I would say maybe like probably around when I met you, like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
So I was, I don't know, mid 30s, early 30s. At the time, I had this marvelous job that I told you about at the agency. I was married. Everything was perfect, but I was super unhappy. So then at that point, I was like, I need to do something about it. I was just really sad. Like people could notice I was sad. So then I remember that my boss at the time, he suggested to go to Al-Anon. which is like for friends and family of alcoholics, addicts. And even though I didn't really qualify because I didn't really have anybody in my life that was an addict, I still went because I was desperate. And it was a blessing because I learned, well, the fundamental steps of mental health and personal development,
Mm-hmm.
but I also got perspective of other people's lives, hearing their stories. I was like, wow, what's my excuse, right? Not that, I don't know, I don't want to like cliche their pain or their experiences, but I really should not have been there because I didn't really qualify. So that I got that from that. And then from there, it was a snowball. From there, I went to Axen, which was our accountability group, and it has a lot of that like personal growth teachings in there. I did some NLP training. Yeah, I just started. I did therapy for a month. I didn't really enjoy therapy that much, but I tried it. I really worked on finding better people to surround myself with that were positive. And yeah, so I know what better feels like. So then now when it kicked back up with the negative thoughts, I was like, it felt like being like having like cold water dumped on me. I know what it feels like now to be how I was before, and I don't want that. So then kind of I get a little like stressed and anxious and fearful because I'm like afraid that that I won't be able to fix it again, And it's like, so that's kind of where I'm at.
So you brought up Axen, NLP, and therapy. So tell us, with Axen, what were some of the fundamental things that you took out of Axen that
Oh,
helped
so
you
much. Yeah.
become, get out of that space you were in?
Apart from the people, I will say that all of my best friends are from Axon right now, all of them. So that's crazy. Being around like-minded people blew my mind. Speaking of that, because I lived a very sheltered life, and just going out and talking to people, and even though we were like-minded in a lot of ways, there's also a lot of differences, but I still respected them because I don't know, it was just like an amazing experience of getting to know different ways of living and then taking whatever they do in their life, like your dedication to fitness and the way you see that. I take that and I apply that to other areas of my life. Like I might not apply it exactly to fitness, but I'll apply it to work or whatever, or stuff like that. So that was huge. And also just learning about, in Accent, we work a lot on making our goals attainable and realistic and not like fluffy. And that was huge because I realized how vague I was. I was like, I never know what I want. Like, I never know what I want. I never know where I want to go. So being an Accent really helped me figure out, okay, I need to just choose something, even if it's not the thing right now. It feels good for now. Let me just go with it. Yeah.
How about NLP? What did you take out of the NLP?
NLP is good. Well,
And what is
specifically,
NLP? So,
yeah, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It is basically, it's not type of coaching, therapy, science, whatever you want to call it, that helps us figure out how our brain works, and like psychologically wise, and also helps us communicate with others better and be better leaders and be better people. It's a really great tool for personal development as well as professional development, relationship development. It can apply to anything in life. I have a friend who happens to be like one of the master trainers of NLP, specifically neurosemantic, which is like a field of NLP. He was just like really nice and said, come to my trainings when I was really down, kind of the same thing where like somebody saw me sad and said, come over. And it's been amazing because I can now kind of realize how I make every decision, how and why I make every decision in life. And that really helps me to have better everything, better personal life, better relationships, better at my job. Just being able to realize how our mind works and not have that veil over our eyes has been amazing. And it's basically so simple. It's like literally like, do these 5 steps and then voila, it happens. So that's kind of how I got into NLP.
and then you said that you did some therapy, that it wasn't your
Yeah.
favorite experience, but give us a little insight to what your therapy experience was like.
Yeah, maybe I just haven't found the right therapist and I'm lazy to keep looking. I feel that maybe because of the NLP training as well,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I am playing a role where they're telling me, like, they're asking questions and I know where they're going. And then they're like, well, this is what you should do this. And I'm like, yeah, I would auto diagnose myself with something different, or I would auto prescribe myself with something different that I know is going to work better. So I have a hard time of like them keeping up with me because I'm such like a fast processor and learner. I need them to keep up with me, and that's kind of been hard. But that's kind of very personal. Apart from, I don't have anything against therapy. I think just that for me, I haven't found the right person.
All right. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all of that. So much information we got out of you today
Oh,
and all
yeah.
your journey. Now there is one story I would like for you to go over that you haven't brought up today, and it's the story of how you changed your thoughts on your own body image after being
Yeah.
part of that documentary about body image.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so a little backstory is that so I am a super late bloomer. Well, let me go even farther back. I was kind of like bullied through my entire like school years, and I was super self-conscious of myself. I always thought I was fat and ugly and everything bad. So that kind of bled into college as well. And I did not have like any boyfriends, girlfriends, kisses, anything until 21. I was 21 years old. And at that point, it was like a really bad fling, like a 6 month fling with this guy. Was really bad. And as soon as that ended, maybe a couple of months later, I think it was 6 months later, I ended up falling in love with my best friend, who happened to be a girl, and we got married and we were together for 13 years. So then when she left me in 2018, I never developed self-confidence in my like body and sensuality and all that because I kind of always I didn't have that as a kid or a teenager. Then I got married and it was a really stable and just serene relationship because I already knew her for years before. So I always felt loved. I didn't have to worry about it. When I got divorced, it was bad. I was like, I really thought somebody would like see me naked and run out the room in disgust. And then all of a sudden, I got invited to be part of this new documentary where people would take off their clothes and share the story of something that was they either loved or did not love about their body. And then I would ask them questions about how they approach their body and just different circumstances. And after, I think it was 2 days of this and probably like 24 naked people that I only remember body parts now because they all became like a mush.
Yeah.
I saw way too many body parts in a short amount of time. After all that, I remember getting home, maybe on the drive home, and I was like, oh, I'm really excited to like for somebody to see me naked. And that was like a huge like, where does this come from? And I think it was because I realized that everyone has insecurities that only they can see. Because they were like, my boobs are blah blah blah. And I'm like, your boobs are perfectly great. Or like this little piece of skin here has a mark. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So like realizing that we all have these stupid insecurities that nobody else can see was huge. And also realizing that the way that men and women, and we also had a trans people on the documentary with it, that every human saw their own body is pretty much the same. Like in the same of like how they take care of their body is kind of their philosophy of life and whatever that is. And I was like, oh, so if I think of my body as something beautiful, for example, like one of my values in life, then I will be aligned with like how I should be. If not, I'm misaligned. I don't know if that made sense, but that was kind of like one of the things that I just kept thinking about after that experience. I
But
did
that
it on
had to be
purpose, but
extremely liberating.
yeah, I mean, I feel I mean, there's still parts and I'm like, I don't really love this part, but it's not debilitating, I guess, like it was before. Yeah.
So what is the name of this documentary in case people want to go check it
Um,
out, if you
I
remember
don't
it?
think it has. It doesn't have
Uh,
a name.
I don't
I
know.
don't. I
Has
don't
it ever
know.
been released yet? That we
No,
know
I
of?
don't. I don't know. So as far as I know, they were going to. There, it's gonna. It was gonna be edited. I don't know what happened with COVID, how that got delayed, but it was gonna be edited, and we're gonna have a screening for the participants. It's gonna be released to film festivals after that. So
Okay, well.
we won't hear about it for a while, but once it comes out, I will definitely promote it.
And now we're going to transition to the next questions. So first question here is, if you could speak to anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
I'm gonna say Frida Kahlo.
Hmm.
I often, well, I'm obsessed with her. I the other day did a list of all the things that I own that have her face on it, and it was like a page long. It was a lot. And I often, like, I have her on my fridge and everywhere. I often like stop and say, what would she say to this thing that I'm thinking? Like, what would she think about this thing that I'm like going through? And I'm like, okay, I think she would say this or think this. I'm like, okay, I'll do that.
So what about her personality traits stand out to you? Because she's obviously a very strong woman at the time that she was in this world. And,
Hmm.
you know, for lack of a better term, she gave zero F's. You know, she was very
Yeah.
much who she wanted to be. So what about her traits appeal to you?
I love, yeah, I do love the strength and how she was so ahead of her time. I also love how like vulnerable she was in terms of just feeling love on without embarrassment for this like guy that she knew that he was not the best guy ever, but she still was like confident enough to say I can be both. I can be this person who is like flawed and falls in love for the wrong guy, and I can also be this really really strong woman who like gives hell and doesn't give a shit. You know, I love that duality in her and
Yeah,
how she's like not embarrassed about any of it.
she was
Yeah,
definitely in your face, like, hey, this is what it is.
yeah,
All right.
yes.
So next question is, what are maybe the top three resources that have inspired you the most? And they
Ooh,
can be anything. It can
inspired.
be
Yeah.
music, books, movies,
Mm-hmm.
action, whatever.
Oh, well, definitely number one is TV. I kind of already mentioned that. That
Hmm.
I my earliest memories are watching like literally it was probably four or five and watching like the history of Egypt and the history of like dinosaurs and just being fascinated with like the world and nature and life and science, all of this through the TV. And I wasn't somebody who I've never been to Europe. I've never been outside of like US and Puerto Rico. And I could live through the TV. I could go see other places was amazing for me. So that's always and still is inspiration. I would say so just something that you said music. It's funny because Soda was a huge, like especially Gustavo Cerati was a huge inspiration during my college years. Like I was gonna be a video editor, or I was gonna wanted to be in TV and film, and I think that every single video that I shot, every single thing I edited was with his songs like in the background of like
Hmm.
figuring out like how it would go with the songs. And it's still to this day it actually I can't even listen to it anymore because he passed away, and I was so sad that I can't listen to his music and not cry, so I don't listen to
Oh,
Sola
wow.
anymore. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sola and Fleetwood Mac also had that same. I've always done Fleetwood Mac and Sola are like right there and there.
All right. So then maybe you can give us a little bit of insight, but you're obviously going to be biased. But you know that my wife and I, we want to get another dog, or more my wife than I, but we want
I
to get
didn't
another
know.
dog, and we've already gone dog looking, and I think we've got one picked out. We're in between two names, both musical names.
Okay.
So one of them is Penny Lane, which is, you know, a reference to a Beatles song. And the
Right.
other one is Gypsy, which is a reference to a Fleetwood Mac song.
Wow. No, I'm always gonna go Gypsy. I will always go Gypsy. I do love the Beatles, but not as much as Fleetwood Mac. And
So,
also, Gypsy's one of the best songs ever.
but yeah, so I'm thinking maybe we'll call it Penny Gypsy Lane.
That's cool. Yeah, I like
Because the
that.
thing is that for me, when I hear the songs, because I love both of those songs, but when I
Mhm.
hear the songs, the energy of Penny Lane is just a happy go lucky type of song, where Gypsy is a more bohemian,
Yeah, that's
sexy
true.
sounding song.
I would be scared of, I will say I'm scared of a dog named Gypsy in case it's too moody. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, maybe if it was a cat, I'd be more afraid, but
Yeah.
maybe you're okay with the
Mm. All right. So
dog.
thanks for your input on
Yes.
that. So next question is, all right, and this is the time travel question. So let's see.
Oh.
If you can go back in time and speak to your 18-year-old mother,
Oh my.
what advice would you give her?
Ah. Oh, this is so good. Um, ooh, it's well, this is the thing. The advice I would give her would mean I wouldn't be here. But I'll go for it. I'll sacrifice myself. Well, I would tell my mom that she that she could do anything that she wants and break all the rules and nothing bad is going to happen, and that she doesn't have to follow her parents, whatever her parents want, or whatever whoever she met wants, that she should just follow her dreams and she's going to live like a badass life. I won't be in it, but it's fine.
Well, who knows how the universe decides to manifest
Maybe.
itself.
True.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yes.
good advice for mom. So
Yes.
next question is, are there any questions you'd like to ask me?
Oh, I want to know what's been weighing on your mind lately.
Well, I'm here in a new town
Mm-hmm.
where, from what I understand, because I've been networking like a mad person over here, and what I keep hearing from a lot of the influential people in this community is that this town is very much based on relationships. It's a relational town. It is
Mm-hmm.
not a transactional town, where South Florida is way more transactional. It's like, you give me
Oh.
this, I'll give you that, and that's fine. New York, super transactional. But here, it's about how you build relationships, the quality of those relationships, and that's what will, help you grow if you help other people. So I've been thinking very much of that because, I came over here and, we knew that I was going to take a hit in finances because, again, nobody knows me here and I have to rebuild. Now, COVID made it happen sooner and faster than I would
Mm.
have liked, because that wasn't how we planned it. But, the universe
Yeah.
doesn't care about what we plan. So what's on my mind a lot is how I'm going to create value for people and build genuine relationships here in my new town as I try to grow my business and grow my reputation and just grow here.
I think you won't have any problem with that because I really only have a few friends, and I don't stay in touch with people that are not just like people that care about other people and are open-minded and want to have a good conversation, and you fit the bill. So I think it's going to be great. People are going to love you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now,
Yeah,
but in building things that are relational, it takes time
it
because
does.
that's not
Yeah.
something that, you go on a date and you don't automatically get married unless you're just crazy and you go to Vegas. You have to keep dating people. And
Yeah.
I don't mean in a relationship
I know. Yeah.
love way. I mean in, just in a friendship way. You have to size people up. But in the meantime, my wonderful wife is the one that's carrying the financial load, and she
Hmm.
believes in me just like you believe in me. But at the end of the day, she's like, when is this going to start happening? Because again, it weighs on you. And
Yeah.
like, you can imagine that she feels like, I'm very aware of how it must feel to her,
Hmm.
because not that it matters, but I'm going to bring up the whole concept of masculinity, femininity. Right now, she probably feels evolutionarily that she's the one supporting everything, and that she's got to be the masculine while at the same time she's got to hold the feminine. So she's got to feel like she's doing it all, where she knows that I'm not going to stop until I figure it out. But that doesn't make it any less frustrating in the meantime.
Totally get it. Yeah. I even though we were two women, we definitely had that flip back and forth many times. We went through, well, one big recession in '08.
Yeah.
Where I was unemployed for 4 months. She was unemployed for a year and a half, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Like I earned a lot more. Sometimes she earned a lot more. I totally get it. But what I will say is, like, after it passes, it doesn't matter. It's like if it never happened.
Yeah. Well,
You
the
just
thing is
gotta
that you
go
learn.
through it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
learn
you
and
just gotta
grow
go
from
through
it.
it. And yeah, although it does take time to build relationships, time passes really fast, and before you know it, you've known somebody for a couple years and they're referring you, and it really is kind of just keep going through it.
So one thing that you just mentioned that I'd like to magnify on is that, you were in a couple with a woman, and yet you said that both of you flip-flop the masculine and feminine. And from my perspective, I think the same thing happens even in heterosexual, because there's been times where I've been the one that's been more and she's been less, and now it's been reversed. And, sometimes, you feel a little more this way and that way, because as beings, we are both.
People ask, well, before that was so common with like gay pride and all that, people really would get asked all the time, so who's the man in the relationship? Honestly, it was none of us. We were both the two girls, which is exactly probably why we divorced, because we were two girls and nobody made a decision in the house. But we didn't do anything because we could never decide, and we were always trying to like please the other person, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that every relationship has a masculine and a feminine. I think, like you said, it's both within us, and we either step up to one of the other at a certain time. So I think that does flip, but not so much like the role of like there's always going to be a masculine one. I don't know, but I get it within ourselves. Like, I think we just step into different roles. I also am starting to not even believe that, because now it's kind of like, what is gender?
Well, that's a whole other discussion right there.
Exactly.
But I do believe we ebb and flow within ourselves with these things.
Yeah. Maybe we can call it something else that's not masculine and feminine.
We can,
a spectrum. Like I like a scale.
well,
or
you know
like
what it is. You know what it is? It's yin and yang.
Oh.
Which has been around since forever.
Yeah.
And that is a spectrum, right? Everything happens within that spectrum.
Yeah. And
part of the spectrum brings the other part of the spectrum. It's yin and yang. For me, that is one of the most fundamental first principles that exist in human thought.
I like that more than masculine and feminine.
Well, the thing is that they both fit into that paradigm as well. There's both of these sides, but they need each other. All right. So now, last question is, let the people know where they can find you. Or that's more of a comment, but whatever. Give all the information of all things Enid.
Yes. Definitely, if you want to hear some amazing true stories that have been shared over the past 3 years, because we just turned 3, Raw Storytelling turned 3, you can definitely listen to our podcast. It is Raw Storytelling on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, on all the podcast apps. Just make sure to search Raw Storytelling. There's a lot of raw stuff and a lot of storytelling stuff. So put it together and you get really good stuff. So Raw Storytelling on Facebook and Instagram is at Raw Storytelling, rawstorytelling.org. All things Raw Storytelling are there. We put out one new episode a month with 3 to 5 stories. And eventually we'll have Flip and Maritza's story on there. And then where else? You can find more about my branding and design at RawMade on Instagram or therawmade.com. And that's where I help businesses and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs build a brand that they're proud to call their own and show off. And let me know. I would love to work with all of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Enid and I are planting some seeds of expanding raw storytelling over here to
Yes.
Colorado Springs. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for
Yes.
that exciting news that should hopefully be coming really soon. That's our episode. If you liked it, please like and share. You can rate the episode if you feel this message resonates. You know, again, share it with other people that you feel that the message might resonate with them too. You can find this and past episodes of WEYT on YouTube. And remember, that's WEYT, WEYT, for what's engaging your thoughts. On YouTube, it's WEYT Show. On Facebook, it's WEYT. On Instagram, it's WEYT Show. And if you'd like to schedule a coaching call with me, you can send me an email at weytshow@gmail.com. And in closing, like always, time and attention is the greatest gift we can give to each other. So here's to spreading more peace, love,